Hello, welcome. My name is Manuel Leon and I am a digital marketing strategist with Design 106. Now, if you've been here before, welcome back. If this is your first time visiting my channel, I'm so happy that you're here. Welcome, I hope you like it. Here in this channel, you will learn anything and everything that you need to know about digital marketing and how to build your online presence. Now, today, I want to talk about specifically an ADA compliant website. What does that mean? How does it work? Why you need it and how you should do it. But first things first, make sure you subscribe to this channel by clicking the subscribe button below. Make sure you click the notification bell so you never miss a single video. Comment in the comment box below and share. Also make sure you like this video, and now let's get to business. Now, ADA compliance, what does that mean? ADA stands for Americans with Disability Act. That means that the government a long time ago passed a law that requires businesses to make accommodations for people with disabilities. Now, in the real world, in the physical world, this is something that is more obvious than in the digital world, right? Like if you go to a business, a lot of times you'll see, or most of the times you'll see, there is handicap parking spot right next to the door or as close as possible. A lot of time you'll see that whenever there are stairs, there are also ramps. The elevators must work in any public building. There's a bunch of things that you can do in order to accommodate that space physically for people with disabilities. But how can you translate that into the online world? Well, stick to the end and I'm going to tell you how. But the first step really is to understand why. I'm going to tell you, I had already a couple clients that have come to me freaking out, completely scared, because unfortunately there are some, what I would call sharks, practicing some sort of predatory law. Basically, these are attorneys that pair up with people with disabilities to purposely start scanning a bunch of different sites and then suing them for not being ADA compliant. And this is really a truly predatory practice because they cannot sue for money. So they can only ask the owner of the website to make sure that the website is compliant, or that they make the adjustments to make the website compliant. But what they can do is to collect attorney's fees. And I've seen businesses driven to the ground for lawsuits like this. Unfortunately, absolutely no one is safe. Small mom and pop shops all the way to big companies can fall victim of this type of predatory practices. So it's very important that if you are an entrepreneur, or if you are a business owner, if you're running a business and you have a business website, you must be ADA compliant. At least in Florida, a law was recently passed that required that any business with 15 employees or more, and for sure any nonprofit or any public website, like any public organization website, needs to be ADA compliant. It's required. If you are a private business under 15 employees, you're not required. But here's the thing, it's also a great thing to have because Google loves ADA compliance website. It's going to help your SEO and it's going to help to build your online presence and your digital marketing overall. Now, let's think about how to translate that ADA compliance from the physical world to the actual online world. One of my clients, he owns a restaurant and he's a little bit on the old-fashioned elderly side. He's an amazing person, but he's not as tech savvy as someone perhaps my age or younger would be. So he wasn't able to even understand or even grasp the concept of how he could make an ADA compliance website. He got a letter from an attorney threatening him by stating a bunch of things that they thought that were not going to be compliant with their website. And this is just bluffing, right? So my client got super scared. He came back and he said, oh my God, I've been threatened. I'm going to get sued because my website is not ADA compliant. Fortunately, being the agency we are and thinking for our clients the way we think before for them, we had already put in place all the correct compliance tools on his website in order to avoid these type of things. So we were able just to produce a report on how his website was actually compliant, send it back over to those lawyers, and the problem disappeared, it went away. But what are those things exactly? Well, when someone who is hearing or sight impaired is navigating the internet or navigating the website, most likely they will need a software to do so in a much more easy and comprehensive manner. There are different softwares out there in the market, and people with disabilities are very specific about what type of software they like to use, because they can also be very specific to the type of disability that you have, right? It's not the same not being able to move and to move your hands, so you cannot use a keyboard and you cannot use a mouse. It's not the same as basically just being blind or not being able to hear pretty well. So there are certain criteria that apply. However, there's not good for all criteria. There are third-party organizations, there are third-party testers, I will say, that can grab and review a website and say, okay, this website is considered compliant according to industry standards, or is not considered compliant, or it's compliant up to this point. There are many factors. Factors include that, for example, any content that is visual or that is audio needs to be transcribed in a text format. Why? Because the software that people with disabilities use, it's a software that reads the website for them, so they can navigate the entire site and understand what factors and what elements and what type of content there is in each page without even having to actually look at the website, right? If they're blind, they cannot look at it, but they can understand what's going on, what are the photos in there, what type of content. So anything that is visual or that is audio needs to be transcribed in a text format, so the software that someone who is sight impaired use can read the website for them. Another thing that is very important is the contrast of color. For people who have difficulty seeing or people who are blind, the contrast is very important, especially if they're not fully blind, because what's going to happen is that that's going to dictate how good or how bad they're able to read the website on their own. The same thing happens with the font size, the same thing happens with the way the tabs are displayed, even embedded in the code of the WordPress or in the code of the programming code of the site itself. There should be certain lines of code that help these softwares to function better in order to make the website ADA compliant. So there is a list of things that are out there and criteria that the website needs to have in order to rank on a certain level of compliance. And like I said, it's kind of like a gray area. It's not such a thing as this is compliant and this is not compliant. Well, I guess we could say something that is absolutely not compliant, but as far as being compliant, is kind of like a gray area, because you can be compliant up to different levels in different criteria in different things. And because there is not one consensus, different parties and different companies make different types of evaluation. Now, how can you get to be compliant? That's the easy part. You have to hire an agency that helps you make sure your website is compliant by testing it in all of these different tools, in all of these different sites, in all of these different criteria, and helps you come up with all the content in a way that it will come up with the criteria and the compliance aspect of it. After that, you have to make sure that your agency or whoever you hire provides you with a report explaining step by step how that website is compliant, what tools they use to make it compliant, and what tools they use or third-party tools they use to evaluate the site and being able to state that the website is in fact compliant with ADA regulations. Now, what are exactly the benefits of having an ADA compliant website? Well, for starters, you're doing a great deed by being able to set up a site that everybody can use. You are reaching out to a market that you could potentially lose if your website is not ADA compliant, especially if you sell products or even some services. You are definitely going to rank better on your SEO because Google loves ADA compliant websites. They take this into considerations, and the more compliant it is, the better and the more is going to help your SEO and your online capital. And last but not least, I think this is definitely the most important, you will be saving yourself from having a big lawsuit asking for a lot of money and potentially driving your business to bankruptcy. Now, if you're not compliant, this can open up the doors to an incredible amount of problems and issues, especially for businesses like restaurants or non-profits, because they are specifically required, at least in Florida, to have ADA compliant websites. So if they're opening themselves to a huge liability if their website is not compliant. This is basically what it is. This is why you need to have a website that is ADA compliant. What does that mean and how to do it? I hope this video was helpful. Make sure you subscribe to this channel and make sure you like. Comment in the comment box below if you have good things to say, bad things to say. If you have questions, I'll reply to them, and see you in the next video. Bye.